Now, ladies and gentlemen, there's a lot of talk on Capitol Hill, particularly among liberals, to try and figure out how to allow states to declare bankruptcy if there are certain constitutional issues. Isn't that stunning to you? States declare bankruptcy. What does that do to the full faith and credit of state financial systems? Well, it destroys them. But my point is, why would states need to declare bankruptcy? Are they not properly managed by the politicians who run them and have run them? Are they not properly looked after by all these auditors and other folks who serve throughout state government for the purpose of overseeing their books? Surely our state governments wouldn't overpromise teachers' unions and other government sector unions on pensions and health care plans, would they? We have states that are quietly talking behind the scenes, with federal officials on how to figure out how they can declare bankruptcy, or, conversely, how we, the federal taxpayer, can bail them out. Although they know that pretty much is off the table since the House of Representatives changed parties. Now, what about the federal government? Can the federal government declare bankruptcy? Not really, no. It can default. Well, how can the federal government be in such a horrible position? I mean, the federal government has all kinds of law enforcement arms and securities arms overseeing the private sector. How many times have we heard? Can't have an unfettered free market like we ever had. Can't have an unfettered free market. Only the government can do what's right. Only the government is noble. Only the government can ensure that people behave, that they don't conspire, that they don't rip people off. Well, then why is the government in such a horrible position financially? Anybody have an answer for that one? Why is it assumed, as the great late Dr. Milton Friedman would say, that nobler decisions are made from politics as opposed to individuals making them on their own through economic decisions? So here we have a number of states that really are bankrupt, but are now trying to figure out how to technically assert it so they can clean their books. And we have a federal government that frankly is technically bankrupt too, because there's no way it has over $100 trillion, or no way it can get it, to cover unfunded liabilities. What exactly is the Democrat Party doing about this? At the federal level, where is the Democrat Party's proposal for cutting spending? At the federal level, where is the Democrat Party's proposal for dealing with federal pensions and health care plans? At the federal level, where is the Democrat Party's proposal for doing anything fiscally responsible? The president's running around, lurching from issue to issue, changing images. I mean, the guy has more personalities now and more images than most. I've counted 5 so far. He's kind of the Sybil of politics. Oh, yes. And he assured us today he really, and I mean really, is focused on jobs now. So all those trillions that we've spent, all that debt we've created, that wasn't really for jobs, that was for something else. I don't know what else, but something else. Those of you who voted for Obama, or those of you who didn't vote because you weren't sure what to do, are you now convinced that statism is a failure? Do you now understand that a concentration of power, a centralized power base, can't possibly make the decisions that need to be made for a healthy and vibrant and free society? Let me answer the question, what is the Democrat proposal for dealing with this financial disaster? It's to spend more, to regulate more, to redistribute more. How does that fix anything? The Republicans have come up with a proposal to cut $2.5 trillion over the next 10 years. President Obama, if we continue on his path, will increase spending $9 trillion over the next 10 years. Which do you think we should do? Is there a single state governor proposing new massive spending, whether or not he could do it constitutionally or not? Is there a single state governor who thinks that's a good idea, as liberal as some of these knuckleheads are? No! Even that loon in California, Jerry Brown, has triggered a state of emergency and is trying to cut billions and billions of dollars from their budget. Even the liberal Cuomo trying to do the same thing because their backs are against the wall. And yet, what are they doing at the federal level? And what are the media doing at the federal level? They've been demanding to see the list of cuts that the Republicans would propose. And now there's a list, and we'll get into some of these. And they're saying things like, oh, they're going to cut 4,000 FBI agents. Why are they cutting 4,000 FBI agents? I was chief of staff at the Department of Justice, and when I was there, I seem to recall there were about 80,000 employees, maybe 100,000. I'm sure there are more now. That's all over the country. Why do you have to cut 4,000 FBI agents? That's like, where your town has to cut a budget and they have 5 cops and they decide they have to cut 2 of them. Meanwhile, all the assistants to the secretaries and all the paperclip benders, they're going to hold on to them because they want you to feel the pain. They want to punish you for daring to cut their budget. Let me ask most of you a question in your own lives. Are you massively increasing your spending, your household budget? Do you know Barack Obama has increased discretionary spending in the last 2 budgets by a massive 84% since he became president? 84% when you add in the stimulus. 24% in the base when you don't. Did you increase your home budget the last 2 years by 24%? By 84%? And the Environmental Protection Agency, which is the strong arm department of this government to set industrial policy that goes into every one of your businesses, every one of your workplaces. Since Obama's been president over the last 2 years, their budget increased 125%. Why would the EPA's budget have to be increased 125% at a time of such a horrible economic downturn? President said he did all of this to save us from the next Great Depression. And now that he has saved us from the Great Depression, he's really focused now on jobs. He did all of what? Massively increase the bureaucracy? How does that increase wealth? How does that increase innovation? How does that increase private sector jobs? What he did is he used the recession, the economic downturn, to take his radical left agenda and institute it. And he did so at breakneck speed because he knew he may well lose, and perhaps in an electoral slaughter, one or both bodies of the Congress. What he did is he used the excuse of an economic downturn, a recession, to institute his far-left agenda. That's why we're not seeing wealth creation. That's why we're not seeing growth. That's why we're not seeing jobs. And one other thing. You have a combination now between a Marxist philosophy, that's right, read it, and crony capitalism. Not unheard of, by the way, in history. Obama brings GE's CEO, Immelt, into his confidence officially. He's been in his confidence for years. GE is using government subsidies and government agencies to advance its business interests in Red China, among other places. GE is being rewarded by the Obama administration for supporting the Obama administration, and vice versa, because Obama says he needs to raise $1 billion to run for office. This is cronyism at the highest levels, right in front of your eyes. Cronyism. How is it that GE, with its tentacles everywhere, doesn't become the next Halliburton for the left, which didn't have its tentacles everywhere? Why is it that companies or financial institutions that back Democrats or this president are companies or financial institutions we're supposed to like, but those that don't are to be destroyed? Yes, these are scary times. Back to our financial situation. CNN, money, the amount of U.S. debt subject to the country's legal maximum has topped $14 trillion for the first time. The amount of debt subject to the cap hit $14 trillion, $1 billion at the close of trade on Wednesday. That means the country is less than $300 billion away from the $14.294 trillion debt ceiling. Over $14 trillion. And if Obama has his way, and the Republicans are unsuccessful in cutting, it will be over $23 trillion at the end of this decade. And on top of that, the bureaucracy will have grown 3-4 times bigger because of Obamacare, because of the regulatory imposition of CO2 rules, cap and trade sorts, if you will. This is a road to disaster. Don't listen to this. Oh, they're going to cut 4,000 FBI. They're sitting down trying to figure out how to scare you. They're sitting down trying to figure out how to divide us, how to create wedge issues. I just said he increased the discretionary budget by 24% in 2 years, and if you add the stimulus, it's 84%. 84%. What have we gotten for it? Job growth? No, the opposite. And so when we try to roll that back and bring some sanity to the numbers, of course they can pick any aspect of the bureaucracy and say, oh, this is going to be cut and that's going to be cut. My attitude is right across the board, 15, 20%. Somehow I think we'll survive. We'll be right back. I knew this was coming. Peter Orszag. You may recall he was the head of OMB until he left to make money. He has an op-ed today in the Financial Times, and among other things he says, it's difficult to see how the medium-term federal deficit can be reduced to sustainable levels without additional tax revenues from those earning less than $250,000 a year. Ooh. Look at that, would you? Now, first of all, implicit in that sentence, I say I'm an expert at unraveling liberal speak. Implicit in that sentence is he says here unsustainable levels. So he believes that the debt is at an unsustainable level. And he was Obama's bagman. And I mean that in the legal sense. Bagman, while Obama was doing all this financial damage. Moreover, he says, look, we got to go after the money people who earn less than $250 a year. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the quintessential middle class that he wants to go after. As they must. They can't fund this government, this massive spending. They can't fund these deficits on the backs of billionaires and millionaires. No, they have to go after you. So let me make a statement which will be profound, if I may. I say in all humility. So if you hear it tomorrow, you'll know who started the ball. What's going on here? What's going on here is plunder. Now that they've created this maze of massive government monstrosities and monuments to themselves, so that they can control your health care and the air that you exhale and anything else they want to, wake up in the morning and decide they want to run, now somebody has to pay for it. You. All this spread the wealth stuff, let's get the rich stuff, well, ladies and gentlemen, it was never going to work. It never can work. It never has worked. Those of you who voted for Obama, you were useful idiots. Those of you who have voted for members of Congress who supported Obama, well, you're useful idiots too.